Tonight, our first speaker is Melissa.
Hey everybody, I'm Melissa. I'm an alcoholic. And I just want to say real quick, if I feel so sad. If any, for all the people and their families that are affected by these fires, so sad. Come from down in Orange County, and I guess for me, I'd say if there's anything that we can do for anyone please let us know. And I'm going to thank Kevin for springing this on me about 15 minutes ago. And I'm going to watch my timer. I am Melissa. I got sober. I'm Melissa. I'm an alcoholic. I got sober in October of 1993, October 25th. And hi, Zoom people. That's kind of fun. I've not been in a meeting where there's Zoomers, too. And so I got sober in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was young. I was 23 when I got sober. I just celebrated 31 years. And I was thinking, lately I've been thinking a lot about the first step, because in meetings everyone's talking about the first step. It's the first month, and I'm myself working the first step in another program, so it's appropriate for me to be thinking about the first step. And when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew that I didn't drink like my friends. I had friends that I drank with, and I drank 13 to 23, so it was a very short time compared to a lot of people that I hear their stories. But I knew that my life was unmanageable. I knew that for sure. I wasn't quite so sure that I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. And so when I got here, I got a DUI. I hit a parked car, and I knew when I was probably 16 that I had an alcohol problem and that I didn't drink like other people. But when my brother went to treatment when he was 14, and when he, I went to the little treatment center and I did the family group, and they, I knew like it was bad, and I thought I'll do something about it when it gets bad enough, but I didn't think it was bad enough yet. So fast forward, crashing into parked cars in a car that I hadn't even signed the papers on. Like there were consequences in my life that didn't look good, but on the outside I could kind of hold it together. And so when I came in here, I felt like you all had the owner's manual to life that someone forgot to give me. And so I jumped in, and I'm sorry, I'm all over the place because it got sprung on me, but I can pull it together. So when I got sober in Atlanta, I didn't think I was going to stay sober forever. I really clung on to the one day at a time thing. I was like, I can do this for one day, and you all were pretty nice people, and you had good cookies, and was smoking in the meetings, and I was a smoker at the time, so I was like, I can do this. So I just kept coming, and I guess that is maybe the point to my first step message is like all I've done right all of these years is to keep coming. Now my life looks completely different. Like I think about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. What it was was I looked good on the outside. I was the captain of my cheerleading squad, a president of my class. I looked like I had it going on, but inside I was so full of shame, guilt, and remorse for a lot of my behaviors, a lot of the way that I treated people. I felt like I was like flawed. I felt like I was a fake a lot, was a word that kept coming up for me. Like I was just sort of putting on a show, and I was doing dancing for everybody. I would be what you wanted me to be. I'd be what this group wanted me to be. I'd be what that group wanted me to be. But I really had no really sense of who I was. And so that was kind of what it was like. And I was sort of floating around looking for my people. And I didn't really want you to be my people. But when I got here, like, I felt such a peace come over me when I came in the rooms, and I grew to love every single one of you. So what happened was, like, I found this spiritual connection in here that I had never had before. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I wanted to stay so bad because I'd never been a part of something that I wanted to be a part of as much as I did when I came here. And but I had this, like, perfectionism bubble around me. I was like, didn't realize it at the time. So at the time I thought, I'm not a perfectionist. I don't care what people think about me. Like, I really had these ideas that I didn't care what you thought about me. I'm doing what I want to do. And what happened was I came here, and you all gently taught me, showed me, I learned how to be humble. I learned how to be truly honest and honest with myself. I thought I was a fairly honest person, as far as cash register honesty, but I really had no idea how to be honest with myself, because I thought if I said it out loud, then the truth was going to be out, and there was no taking it back. And so what it's like now, sometimes it's still hard for me to tell the truth to myself, because if I say it out loud, but now I'm a little more willing to, because pain is a great motivator. And when I don't tell the truth, and when I stuff what I know in my heart to be true, it comes out in ways that I don't like. I become someone that I don't like. And so, my children never saw me drink, and I have 2 children, and I have one daughter who is now sober 2 years, and she's coming at me with a lot of her stuff. I thought they had, that they'd escaped this alcoholism thing, and, that I didn't do any harm, but I'm finding out that, because luckily this is progress, not perfection, and I'm still learning that at 31 years that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay. I didn't honestly. I worked the steps to the best of my ability, but I'm learning to be a little more gentle with myself and allow myself the grace to work them again and do it a little deeper. And I'm still learning to be humble. I'm still learning to be honest. And, that's kind of like what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. I'm still learning all these things. That's the truth. And, but I'm sober. And had I not gotten sober, I couldn't do all those things without that, because when I had that alcohol in my system, and I was just the party girl, and I didn't really care. I was floating around in my life. I didn't really want to be grounded to anything. I didn't really have a sense of purpose. So it's not very uplifting talk, but I know there's so much hope. I have hope. I've been doing now in last since Christmas, like 2 and 3 meetings a day, and I feel like a newcomer again, and that's okay. Like, I'm learning to just be okay. I needed that then, and I need that today. I just need to be okay with who I am, and I hate that it's taken this long to learn some of these things, but it has, and that's okay. So, I don't know. My time pretty good, almost. 30 seconds. So, I'm so grateful that it's progress, not perfection, and that I don't have to do it perfectly. And I think that had I wish I could have heard that a little more in the beginning. You know, a little more that it's okay to do this the best of your ability. You can always do it again and again and again. And like just to be okay right here. So I'm not supposed to like offer anything, but that would be my experience, is that it's okay to be not okay. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Melissa. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you for taking your seats quickly and quietly. And now please join me in welcoming our main speaker, Kevin.
My name's Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to reach over for this every once in a while. I'd like to say welcome to the new guys. Welcome. Anybody that's new, happy birthday to the birthday gentleman. I already wished you happy birthday, January 5th, 13 years. And welcome from being out of town. My sobriety date's February 22nd, 1997. I have a sponsor. His name is Dave. Just had a stroke. So I keep Dave in my thoughts and prayers. And my home group is the Monday men's stag meeting at the church in Costa Mesa. And I really want to start off by saying I'm nothing like Melissa. Absolutely nothing. Okay? Melissa's a sweetheart. Okay? If you get a chance to know her, she has a huge heart. Okay? When she talks about her life being unmanageable, if you're young, that's nothing to worry about right now. Don't worry about that unmanageability. Run that right into the ground. And I'll tell you why that works real well. She's got a huge heart. I love her dearly. Sherry, my friend, came up. Sherry's got 8 months. Sherry. So my experience is this is a really, this is a tough disease. The more I know about it, the more. A little bit of background. I grew up in Albany, New York. My father was alcoholic. My mom was an untreated Al-Anon, which was always helpful. So that was good. I went to bed till I was 15 years old. Any other bedwetters in here? There you go. Thank you very much. I know a few of you are lying. I say that, but there was a lot of violence in our house. My dad was about 6'4", 240 pounds. He was a contractor, drank a lot. He came, I got a chance to learn about my dad, so a lot of times tonight I'll speak from like retrospect and go back, and I'd like to blame, and I did blame a long time, the alcoholism on my father. I blamed him a lot. By the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had tried to beat him up one time. I drove all the way up from college. I played college basketball, and I worked out with the sole intent while I was drinking one night that I was going to go up and take a shot at him. And I knocked on his back door. He came up, and he said, "I'll be right back." And he went and put it like a kind of a contractor's uniform on, his work boots out. And he stepped outside the door, and he closed the door, and he said, "Do you want to take a shot at the champion?" That's what he said to me. And I kind of looked at him, and I thought, well, maybe if I beat him up, I'll be in trouble. And maybe if he beats me up, I'd be in trouble. That thought went through my head, and I got back in my car, and I went back down to New Haven, Connecticut, and went to school. So that was kind of the result of how my father and my mom, on the other hand, I used to say I was real close. I could take advantage of her anytime. She was good for money. She was good for stealing stuff. She was good for things like that. I kept her close to me. I was nice to my mother so that I could get some things from her. I stole a lot of money from my grandmother. She made it kind of easy. She used to leave these wallets out with, I still have it in my car because I was at a church one time and I picked up this Mother Teresa brought me to tears. This is when I was sober, but she used to have this wallet that opened up, and there was Mother Teresa on one side, and then there was $60 on the other side. So I clip a 20 out. If things were good, I maybe take 40. And so that was the type of guy I was. This unmanageability thing in my life, I never really thought that, when I was drinking, I see a lot of new guys here, which is kind of cool. Had I known, like I knew at 10 years old when my dad got sober, I knew there was some stuff going on. They were having meetings in my house. I was reading the big book at 10 years old. I hadn't even had a drink yet. I smoked some weed with my next door neighbor, Jamie Ryan, and I would come in stoned, really stoned, and eat a lot and still play basketball. So I knew he knew something was going on. But I was pulling stuff like not being able to be honest at a really, really young age. Like my father would stand in front of me, and I had taken some money from my mom or from my dad. And so in the house, it was my mother, my father, and me, and then 2 small sisters. So nobody had come in the house and robbed us of anything, but they were missing money. So my dad would say to me, I already know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you. Please don't lie to me. And he would give me a second, to think about that. And then he'd say again, I already know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you. Please don't lie to me. And he would say, who took the money? And I would say, I don't know. And if you relate to that, then welcome, you belong here. Because, the book starts to talk about demands rigorous honesty. And so I lived my life for a long, long, long time being rigorously dishonest. And I'd like to tell you I didn't know how to tell the truth. I wasn't raised like that. I don't know what happened, but I could rationalize, justify, and deny just about any of the behaviors. I was on my way. Somebody asked me, Merle, or somebody asked me where I grew up, and I grew up in upstate New York. I played a lot of basketball. I was fairly decent. I was a big fish in a small pond. Kevin Cavanaugh and I were on the way to a game, and we had to walk up the street. It was like 20 degrees or 10 degrees, and we were walking, and he goes, we're going to miss the bus. And I go, I don't care. Outside the store, there was a car running, and we jumped in it. I drove to the game. We got there before everybody else, and we played the game. Coach said, you didn't take the bus. How'd you get to the game? And I said, I don't know. I don't know how we got here. We left the car, got on the bus, and we took the bus back, and I never got in trouble for that. So I was able to be kind of, that's how I behaved. I behaved like, I listened tonight, and you guys read all this crap. You're up here like, no smoking in Manhattan Beach, no vaping in Manhattan Beach. Okay, I want to just tell you something. I feel like smoking and vaping right now. And I don't smoke or vape. I don't know where I got that. And I'm sober a long time. But see, I instantly think, you guys got a lot of rules here. It's going to be tough to stay here. So I think, how quickly could I get to Redondo and smoke and get back to the meeting? And then, please no talking amongst yourselves, or let's have respect for the speaker. And dude, look at this crap. Look at this. Holy cow. I want to tell you something. You're going to need to have a lot to drink, and a lot of stuff happen before that unmanageability that Melissa talked about, where you're going to want to show up here. Because I knew I belonged. I knew I had a drinking and drug problem. The last 3 years of my drinking and using, every time I drank, in the end, I did that white powder stuff that made you go fast. And I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, singleness of purpose, and I have that, and I have a lot of respect for Alcoholics Anonymous. But as soon as that bell would go off, I answered the bell. Just as soon as that bell would go off, ding, I'd immediately have to go to the bathroom. And, it was awful. And I got arrested 17 times in the last 3 years of my drinking. I went in front of this judge in Long Beach, and he'd look at me, and he'd look down over his glasses, Judge Kalinsky, and he'd say, Mr. Yarder, and he'd look at me, and he goes, you again. Courtroom would be filled, and he'd say something to me, and I would blurt something out, and people would laugh, and off to the jail I would go. And the same 2 cops were arresting me, and, I knew drinking might be the problem, and I didn't know. I hear people in meetings go, when I took my first drink, I immediately fell in love with booze. That didn't happen to me. I played basketball when I had my first drink. It was with a couple guys at the boys club, and I immediately blacked out. We drank 2 tall boys that we stole. I drank some whiskey with it, blacked out, walked down the hallway in the boys club, and there was my father standing there, and he looked at me, and my feet from there never hit the ground till we got home on Fifth Avenue. He drugged me. My shirt was off. I was bloodied by the time I got home. He throws me on the floor. He goes, "Look at your son now." I didn't know it, but I was up for Boy of the Year because I had won all sorts of trophies that year in basketball, football, baseball, chess, whatever. Again, I was a fairly decent athlete, but that kind of held it off for a little while and threw me on the floor and said, "Look at your son." Isn't it amazing when kids have, when you have parents like that and they look at your son? But when I'm getting a trophy, it's look at my son. I try not to do that. I have a child. He has had his own struggles, but so this is all in retrospect. As I sat there and things would dawn on me when I was in jail, I'd be like, why am I in jail? Well, maybe for my drinking. But I really never knew that drinking was my problem. And then I read this book where it says we have a solution. Well, you have a solution for me to stop drinking? No, we have a solution for you guys like you that if you follow these steps, you can tell the truth, you can become rigorously honest, you can, make amends. So I drank through a basketball career. I want to tell you what a guy told me. I went to a preseason playoff game for a pretty big team in Boston and thought I was pretty grandiose, and we went down to New York and played in a basketball game. And he told me that curfew was at midnight, and the bus told us that curfew was at midnight, handed us our $20 and said the bus will be out in front, make sure you're on it. Thought, okay, again, I'm going back to listening to all these rules that you guys have. You got a lot of rules. That sounded like a rule. So I was really drunk, and I was downstairs doing some of those outside issues. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was still in the bar downstairs, and he walked downstairs. And I saw by the reflection of the mirror that I was doing a line off of, I could see his face, and I thought, and I looked up and I went, like, what are you doing here? And I wanted to say it's past curfew. I wanted to tell him it was past curfew. And it dawned on me that that might not be the right thing to say. And this guy was like an NBA champion. He had a big ring on his finger. He's very well respected. And he said, I'll see you when you get back to Boston. And I got on a bus by myself and went back there. And this might not ring true to some of the newer guys because I was young. I had this attitude like, you can't tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me what to do. That stems from my dad. You can't tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I will do what I want to do when I want to do it for however long I want to do it. And please don't get in my way. And he looked at me up there in Boston and he said, give me your playbook. And he took my playbook. And I had this attitude like, you don't know who I am. I'm going to go to the next place and you won't. And I'm thinking this because I didn't want to say it out loud because I did have a lot of respect for the guy. And he looked at me and he said, you have $1 million worth of talent, but you have a 10-cent head. And if that makes sense to some of you people, it didn't make any sense to me at all. Nothing. I didn't know what that meant. And I told that to my sponsor when I got sober. And he knew exactly what that meant because he had played for the Pittsburgh Pirates and he was asked to leave there because of his drinking. And that was in '69 when they won the World Series. And, I don't have a ring. He doesn't have a ring. And that would have been nice. But my destiny has brought me to standing in front of you folks, clean and sober for how long? So life does, what it does. But those things never really made sense, And so I go through a marriage and I'm married to a gal and I meet her and she has a house and I live in an apartment and she has washers and dryers and I got to go to the laundromat and I got a bag of clothes and I play basketball and she says I can put those in the laundry and immediately I fell in love And when we pulled into her garage, I'll never forget it. I told Melissa this story. The garage went up. She had one of those automatic garage door openers. I'd never even seen one of those. You know, I was 23 or 24 years old, and the garage went up, and I looked in, and she had soap powder on, like she had extra stuff. Like, you guys get that? I didn't have anything extra of nothing. My first shower in my apartment, I dried off with the curtains and didn't realize that they had fiberglass in them, and I itched the whole night while I was drinking over at the AI on 2nd Street. And I'm fairly smart. I mean, you're not going to get that out of my pitch. I understand that, but I mean, she had stuff. I went, oh my God, I love you, you know. And so the intimacy was great, and we were drinking in a bar. We were really, really drunk. We had gone out for about 6 months. We were dancing. Her favorite song was on. You guys talk about this God's will thing. You know, I mean, this is magic. I'm drunk. She looks at me and she says, do you want to get married? And I still had a little intuition left, and my pit of my stomach said no, but out of my mouth I said yes. Have you ever had that happen? I've had it happen a couple of times when I was arrested. And she said, don't say that because I'll plan it. She said, I'll plan it. And we were in Vegas 2 weeks later, and we got married, and when they brought in the cart, they pushed in the cart for newlyweds at Caesar's Palace, real cheesy room, you know, but bear with me, I could paint a nice picture of it. But they pushed the cart in and they had that fake newspaper on the cart, and it said, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Yarder, our newlyweds here at Caesar's Palace. And I looked over in the bed at my lovely wife. She was passed out, and I looked, and I tipped the guy, and he was walking out. He goes, congratulations. And then my first thought was, I can do this. It was like going down a ski slope, and I can't ski, but I'm going to go down the Black Diamond. And I'm like, I can do this. And that's how I approached it. One time, sitting there at the table, and she looked at me and she said, I think that's about your 7th drink. And I said, so you're going to start counting my drinks now? That's what you're doing? She said, well, that's your 7th drink. And I said, well, I think you should just eat your breakfast and leave me alone, you know? And so she said things to me like, if you leave again for 4 or 5 days and you go do your thing and do stuff like that, I wasn't cheating on her, but what I was doing is the outside issues had gotten so bad I would start drinking on Thursday and I couldn't come around till Tuesday. That's what was happening to me. And I didn't want that to happen to me. I knew I had a job on Monday, sort of, whatever that was, but I was starting to miss out on things. And we had a child, and he was 3 years old, and I looked around one day and he was standing there. I'm like, where did you come from? You know, I was missing things. And she said, if you do that again, I'm going to take him and you'll never see him again. And I thought, that's a threat. She goes, I'll divorce you. And I immediately thought this. I thought, you're going to divorce me? I mean, I'm not divorceable. And I'm glad you laughed. That's good, because I am divorceable. And she divorced me. She took him and packed a truck. And I remember coming home, and I walked through the door. And if you ever have done this, fellas or women, I came through the door, and I could see where all the pictures had been gone, and the furniture was moved. And she left me a bed on the bottom of the floor with a milk crate with a black and white TV on it, and my dirty clothes in the closet. I'll never forget it. And for about an hour, I felt bad. I don't know what feeling bad felt like, to tell you the truth, but I was like, oh, she's gone. Oh, he's gone. And I mean this by saying I didn't know how that, I was trying to remember how that felt. And so about an hour later, I was down at 2nd Street at the Acapulco Inn drinking and cursing her out and having 3 or 4 of my friends say, you know, she wasn't good for you anyways, dude. You know, welcome back. I'm glad you're back. And I was drunk again. And I was off and running. And, you know, all sorts of stuff like that, crash cars. Again, I'm not like Melissa, where all of a sudden, you know, that unmanageability goes with the deal. Jails, institutions, all that stuff goes with alcoholism. I'm the one who, I just need to run it right into the ground. And I don't know what happened. It wasn't my worst day. I've had many of these times where the 4-day runs and everything like that, but I was living with a woman who was my real estate broker. She felt sorry for me. I didn't know that at the time. And I was renting a room from her that she let me pick the rent because she owned the house. I picked $450. I owed her 6 months worth of rent. I owed $50,000 in back child support. I owed $150,000 in back taxes. I had 2 restraining orders, one in Orange County and one in Jefferson County, Denver. I thought I had it going on. I still had a car. I had stolen the license plate tags off the guy's car across the street at 3 o'clock in the morning and put them on my car. And I was still trying to pick up girls at Panama Joe's down on 2nd Street. And I probably am telling too much because Melissa and I are dating, but I've never stolen your tags, I swear to God. And that's, I come out of a wet bed. I wet it twice. If you wet the bed once, you're fine because you can roll over to the dry side of the bed, grab those covers, pull them underneath, and you can stay dry. But I passed out and I couldn't. I rolled out of bed and I had this feeling come over me on February 22nd, 97. I can still remember it to this day. And I landed on the floor. The phone was right there on a small table. This is before cell phones. It was connected to the wall. You guys might have seen them. It was blue, was on a cradle like this. And I'll never forget, I picked up the phone and I dialed my mother. She picked up the phone. And I said, I can't stop drinking and I can't get sober. And she said, what are you going to do? And it was a hush. And there's a story in the book about Bill who goes sitting in front of Ebby. And Ebby starts telling him some stories. And Bill's mind starts to drift about his grandfather and what they told him in church and, the music and all this other stuff. And he starts to... And I identify with that because when my mom asked me, what are you going to do? I thought it was her job to get me sober. That I was going to go back home and she was going to treat me like I was 9 years old. Melissa's a wonderful mother. I thought I could take advantage of my mother again. She might fly me home, put me in that bedroom, put me to bed, grab my basketball. I could go to the boys' club. Now I'm 36 years old, but I thought maybe I could be 9 again. I don't know. But that's where my head went, because I wanted somebody to take care of me. She asked me again, what are you going to do? She really didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I knew what I had to do. I got up and I went and saw this guy. His name was Jeff Hernandez. He was a heroin addict, biker, tattooed up, long hair. But I had him in DUI school about 5 or 6 years previous, and I knew he was sober. I don't know why this happened, but it all went down like this. I knew he worked at this DUI school. I didn't think about a meeting, but I went and saw him, and when he saw me, I dressed up in a suit, and I put a Mont Blanc pen in my pocket, and I was going to impress him. I went over to B of A that was on 2nd Street, and I tried to get $60 out because I wanted to get my car washed, and I wanted to have enough to take him to lunch. That was my thinking at the time. I was dying. And my mind kept going, you're making too big of a deal of this, and my head's spinning. Hey, just take that money. And, I was already on 2nd Street. I jumped in the car, and I walked in his office, and he looked right dead at me, and he goes, what do you want? I thought, why don't you and I go to lunch? And he goes, I don't go to lunch with guys like you. What had happened is in DUI school, what I was doing is I was taking people down to Panama Joe's and we were getting high, smoking joints, drinking, and doing blow. And they were signing papers that they wanted to be in these DUI classes. And here I am influencing. So he sent me back to court a couple times and I went to jail. But I didn't think anything of that I was being detrimental to people that were in DUI school. I didn't think anything wrong of that. And so I looked at him. And it hit me from the bottom of my stomach. I looked at him and I welled up in tears and he came up to me and I said, I can't stop drinking and I can't get sober. And I started to cry. And I think what it was from then was a lot of guilt and shame and remorse had come up. And I just, probably for about a half hour, I couldn't stop crying. And he pushed the chair over and he said, sit down. He said, I got a little bit of time. He said, here's some Kleenex, dry your eyes, go down to the meeting, tell me who's secretary, and come back. And I did that, and I've been sober ever since. The next day I showed up at a place called Shark Island, and it was packed with guys. He told me about the meeting. It was a men's stag meeting. I walked in. Again, I wore a suit. I was in the copier business, so I dressed up. But I want to tell you, when I put that suit on and looked at my face in the mirror and shaved, I couldn't look at myself. Because once I stopped drinking, I don't know about the rest of you guys, I don't get better, I get worse. I'm going to start to get worse. I get a little tight. I get a little bit of irritable, restless discontent, which leads me back to drinking, which leads me back to getting... So I do this back and forth, and it says in the book that we repeat that over and over and over again. And so I sat in between these two guys, and my first 3 or 4 days sober is probably a miracle in my life. Because I sat next to a guy named Johnny B., Johnny Bloom, Melissa knows him, and Tom Ivers is dead now. And these guys aren't anonymous in AA and press, radio, and film. Maybe I'm on radio, I don't know, but they wouldn't mind me telling this story. And he looked at me and he goes, "Are you new? Are you new here?" I go, "No, I'm not new here. I live in Long Beach." Not new. You know, I was red. I was like dying. I was dying. You could see it. And it went around the meeting, and it came to me, and Tom put his hand up. He was an old car guy, great guy. He put his hand up, "Tom, I'm an alcoholic." And I put my hand up. I said, "My name's Kevin, I'm an alcoholic." And then they announced newcomers, and I stuck my hand up, and Johnny B. rubbed my head. He goes, "Welcome, you are new." And I was a little upset with that, but yeah, I didn't hear anything for the rest of the meeting. And as we're leaving, I kept going back to I'm making a mistake here. Maybe I should drink again, but I knew I shouldn't drink. And so as I was leaving the meeting, Johnny B. grabbed me and he said, "Hey, come here." And I said, "Yeah." He says, "You going to come back tomorrow?" And I said, "I don't know why." He goes, "We'll save you a seat." And I go, "You saved me a seat on the floor." I wasn't sitting in a seat. The place was so packed, I sat on the floor. And as I left that meeting, I couldn't wait to get back there the next day. I couldn't wait to get back. I knew I was a loser. I knew I was a deadbeat dad. All those things that were coming out. My ex-wife called me one time and put my son on the phone, and he said, Daddy, will you please send grocery money?" And I had $750 in my pocket. I was going to pay my dealer, and I was going over the AI because I used to write checks and pay off what I owed there so I could get a start on the next week. And $750 was my current child support and my back child support payment. And just ironically, that's how much money I had in my pocket. And I said, "Put your mother on the phone." And I laced her upside down and down the other. "You won't even let me see my son," and this and that, and the whole bunch of stuff. And when I got to the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I wrote a lot of that stuff down. I wrote about my dad. I wrote about my mom. I wrote about my grandmother. I wrote about my ex-wife, how everybody had done a whole bunch of stuff to me. My dad beat me when I was a kid, and, my mother should have taken me away from all this. And after I rewrote that to have my part, what was my part in it, I ended up sitting across the table from her after about 2 years sober, making amends, and I was waiting for her to make amends to me. And I was there with my part, and she just listened. And then after I was done, I said, "Listen, Karen, I want to tell you something. 99% of what happened in our relationship was my fault." She said, "What's the 1%? I said, "You showed up. You happened to be there. If it wasn't you, it would have been somebody else. 99% was my fault." So I thought, hey, we're going to get a teal for reunion, little hug, everything's good, we're all equal, I'll remove the restraining orders, you don't owe any child support, everything's cool. Yeah, that's not what happened. She said, "Do you have a pen?" And I said, "Yes." And she looked at me and she said, "Number 1, keep your commitments." And I immediately thought, I do keep my commitments. I was so delusional when I got here. Thank God for a sponsor who was able to walk me through some things that I just was not able to see. I was not able to see. "Kevin, how would you be 50 grand upside down in child support and be current on your commitments?" It was confusing. He says, "I have a daughter, I'm current," and he used that word a lot with me. Be current. Get current. See if you can get current with these people. You know? I went home, so we made a list, and I called him on the phone. I go, you won't believe what this girl said to me. And he said, just bring it home. We'll go to a meeting. We'll talk about it. Everything she said on the paper was factual. And I made amends. I paid back that child support. I wasn't allowed to get a new car or any type of new vehicles or any of that type of stuff till I was current on my child support. She told me things like, if you came and picked up Kyle, or somebody came and picked up Kyle and was drunk in a van, would you let him get in the car? I go, absolutely not. He goes, then why did you think I was going to let him go with you? You're drunk. Well, that hurt my feelings, if I had any feelings. That judge that I went back and saw, his name, Judge Kalinsky, and I sat with him. I waited for him, and he looked across, and I put my name at the bailiff. I sat there all day. 3:30 came, and he said to the bailiff, he didn't know, so bailiff came back in, walked me back in. I sat down. I said, Your Honor, I'm here. I said, my name is, he said, I know who you are, Mr. Yarder. He said, I know who you are. He said, what do you want? And I said, I have a 2-year chip, and I'm sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'd like to make amends to you in the court. And he reached in his drawer, and he pulled out a 26-year chip. And he said, guys like you, men of your caliber, don't ever come back and say anything like this to me. He started to cry. I started to cry, and I thought I was going to walk out scot-free. And he says, do me a favor, go down to that police station and volunteer and wash those police cars for a couple months. And I did that. And that grandmother that I ripped off money from, I sat in front of her. She made a book of all my basketball stuff. This woman was my savior. I could well up in tears because I'm looking at that statue back there. Might be Mother Teresa, but that was her favorite. You know, she was such a good woman. I mean, I would go over there and I'd be grounded, and she'd look at me and she'd go, you're not grounded here. Sit down, because that was her son. Sit down. He'd get a beer. She'd open up this drawer, and there was gum and money and chocolate in there. And I would stick it in my pockets, you know, and she'd say, go play. And cousin's over there. I was never grounded. And I sat in front of her in the kitchen. I said, hey, I got some stuff I need to tell you. And she goes, yes, honey. Can I get you some breakfast? And I go, no, Graham, no, it's not about that. And I said, I want to tell you, when I come down here sometimes and put your garbage out, I couldn't wait to steal money. And she goes, yes. And I go, you know, this and that, I feel bad, you know, I brought some money, I'd like to repay you. She goes, honey, did you see the Mother Teresa card on the other side of the purse? On the other side of the wallet? And I said, what? She goes, I put that money in there especially for you. I went, oh my God. I'm stealing from a woman who would give me the money anyway. She was putting it in there so I could steal it. Okay, so I don't know how far you got to go or where you got to go, but Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. Saved my life, gave me a life. I mean, that's the scumbag that showed up to you people. If I stood up here and told you guys all of that stuff and you still accept me and love me at a place like this, what are you, kidding me? I'm all in. If you're here and you're not grateful to be in Alcoholics Anonymous, sorry. That's not my story, you know. I was in New York and I was at this conference and I had won some award. I was 2 years sober. This guy, Bill, comes to me and he's in the program and he says, hey, don't you live in Albany? He was also from Philly or Pennsylvania area, and he was president of our company, good guy. And he said, look, there's going to be a party on Saturday and Sunday. You don't need to be a part of that. You're sober. Why don't you go up to Albany and surprise your family? Well, Howard had me on this amends list where, you know, leave these people alone, just stay sober. Child support, you want to get on right away. This you want to get on right away. These you want to get on right away. We're going to get on some of this stuff right away. So my mom was on kind of a hold-off type of a thing. So I jumped on the train and I went up to see her, and she was remarried to a guy who wasn't home. I knocked on the door. She opened up the door. She goes, like I had conversations with her. She knew I was sober, so she wasn't as upset. She was still skeptical. as was my father. And she said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I just wanted to say hello. I was down in New York and blah, 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 and this and that. And it started to snow outside, just a light snow. I just taken my 2-year in February. It was in the middle of March, my mother's birthday. She'll be 90, March 24th. And so it was about the 13th or 14th. And I said, maybe we could take a walk. She said, that'd be great. So we were walking, and then she reached out and held my hand. And I said, my sisters, I have 2 sisters, we're thinking about what we could get you for your birthday. And she said, do you have one of those chips on you? And I said, yeah. And she said, I'd like to have that. And so I gave her my 2-year chip, and she said, it's just nice to have my son back. It's just nice to have my son back. And see, the thing that got me was I could feel that. And I wasn't able to feel that because I would slit your throat and piss on your back. That's the guy that showed up here. I could talk to an ex-wife and say, if I don't see my son, I'm not paying you a dime. That's who shows up in Alcoholics Anonymous. Is, you take birthdays and everybody goes, yeah, congratulations. I want to tell you, we turn nightmares into fairy tales. I'm a miracle. I'm a scumbag. You let a scumbag come in your church and speak to you tonight. But from the heart, this place saved my life. I'm not that guy today. And it's not because of me, it's because of you. You don't need me, but I need you. Every single one of you. I don't know you, nor do I want to, because I'm like, Melissa likes everybody. I don't. I'm not, I'm just kidding. But 10 minutes? Okay, I'm going to be about 25, so hang in there, okay? These people are really liking me, all right? And I'm selling tapes when we're done, okay? But that's who shows up at a place like this. And, I know all of us have our own stories. And, my dad was an absolute maniac with us. Just to tell you a quick story, when I was 10 years old, I had lied to him so much that he was so frustrated with me that over the years he thought he could beat it out of me. And we had this talk, and we come from a generation of whatever. He was a Korean War vet, decorated. He was in a paratrooper that had their own specific tattoo. And they jumped behind enemy lines to save guys. He was a contractor, pulled out of school to work on the railroad. I mean, he was a tough, smart, tough guy. And, so I lied to him again about something, and he put me in the car. My mother's away for the weekend. He takes me down to the Hudson River, and true story. And the river's running, and he says, this is the last time you're going to lie to me. And I had wet myself, and I'm, don't, Dad, don't. And he drags me out of the car, and he's got me like this, and he's about to toss me into the river. And I'm like, don't, Dad. And he just, boom, dropped me, and he walked away, and he came back, and he goes, get in the car. And kind of long story short, I knew that it happened. He knew it had happened. So at 5 years sober, I go home. I'd written that in my steps, and Howard said, well, sometime maybe you can address it. So we're at dinner, and I talked to him about it, and he goes, I don't remember any of that, please. And he goes, you're sober, 5 years, that's great. That's great. He says, I still think you're smoking a little weed because you're a little too happy for me, but don't worry about it. He's a tough guy. He's sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, but, he was a hard guy. 10 years, I did the same thing, brought up the story and the whole shot. And I used to give him a hug, and he'd put his arms down like this. And so I took him down to the VA because he had a cancer surgery, and they operated on him. And, we stayed down there. And about 6 months before he died, because I had told him that story a couple of times and then went back to my sponsor because I thought I was crazy. He'd say, maybe it was perception, maybe you didn't hear it the right way, or, and okay. But I was going to meetings with him, and I was, trying to do my best. And I get a message on my phone, and it's 20 years later. I'm 20 years sober, and he's crying on the phone. And he's like, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. Please, I got to talk to you. You need to fly home. I need to talk to you. I thought, hey, something serious is going on. So I picked up the phone, and I was talking to him, and he said, hey, do you remember that story that you tell me? And I said, yeah. He said it was true. He said, I tried to kill you a couple times. You scared me. He said, I didn't know what to do with you. I didn't know how to make you tell the truth. And it frustrated me so bad. And he said, I told you not to tell your mother. And he was crying his eyes out. My dad said 40 words a year. He was a manly man. And I said, Dad, I'm good. We calmed down. I said, Dad, I'm good. He said, when I hugged you a couple times, it felt like I was hugging a tree. And I go, I get it, Dad. I said, but we're good. Everything's okay. And so he passes away, and we're at the funeral, and I got my whole family behind me, my whole family. And I'm up in the front kind of representing the family, and my sisters are there, my aunts, uncles, cousins, all sorts of stuff. And we're at the Saratoga Military Cemetery. They did a full military guard service for him. They come over with a uniform, and the guy's standing there, and he kneels down in front of me, and he says, I'd like to present this to you, Kevin. He says, your father was a hero. And he said a few other words. He said, he served our country, and he served your family, and he was a man of God. And I just broke down. I just started to cry. Well, the feeling that came over to me was I got 20 years to spend with him sober because I had made amends in Alcoholics Anonymous with you guys, And so I didn't hate him. I loved him. And when that guy said, he was a hero, I felt that. He was my hero. My dad did the best he could with what he had. And I know a lot of us have, some of those things that happen like that. But, in closing, I told you those stories only because I have worked all these steps. I've tried to learn about these traditions. I've tried to learn about the concepts. I'm here tonight to tell you that my life is, I couldn't do it without Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't do it without you people. I love this place. I love it here. I love being sober. I have no interest. I want to die sober. I have no interest in, I can tell you, it's not about the drink anymore for me. It's about this, because that alcoholism changes in my brain. Some meetings I walk in, I look around, and I see all my friends, and I go, hey, good to see you. 2 days later, I show up and I go, what are you looking at? It's just that alcoholism that I still have, and I need a spiritual, you're my spiritual way. That's how I get my spirit filled. Booze did it for a long time. Those promises, if you read them and we read them in the end, it made me free, happy, joyous, and free. Booze did that until it didn't. Especially for the new guys here. I just want to tell you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but congratulations, man. I don't know if any of this is going to make sense. I tried to get sober at 23, and I ended up getting sober at 36. So, I don't know about you, but grateful to be here tonight. Thanks for letting me share. Appreciate it.